Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started here in just a moment. Appreciate everybody joining. We're ratcheting up some folks right now. All right, looks like we're starting to level up, so we'll go ahead and get things kicked off. I want to welcome everybody today. I appreciate you joining. This is a joint webinar, obviously, between TempWorks and EMI and, of course, Sense. And, we're going to cover some best practices today using the automation that we've got. It's no secret that we're going through some really unique times, and we're incredibly excited to have Tanya Stroop from EMI Staffing with us on this webinar. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. So first and foremost, of course, we want to thank you for being here. It's we know you're busy during your day, and taking the time out to sit down and speak with us and learn is incredibly valuable, and something that we want to take some information back with us as well. Secondly, we encourage questions. So at any time via the Q&A in your Zoom channel here, we'll make sure to pick those up. We will try to answer them as we go on the fly, but of course we'll actually leave some time at the end of this presentation as well to answer any other further questions that we have. And lastly, this is being recorded, so for anybody who needs to jump out early, joins late, or is just simply unable to attend, we will distribute this at the end of the webinar as well. And so you will have this in your inbox within the next 24 to 48 hours. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. We want to kick off a little bit of a poll, and we always like to understand what is top of mind for our attendees. So just thinking broadly about 2023, which of these would you say is kind of top of mind for your organization? Now we'll leave this open about 15, 20 seconds, and then we'll close it out and see what everybody says. All right, perfect. Mary, you want to pop up those results? Kind of what we expected, and great, because we're on topic today.
Across the board.
Across the board. But driving efficiency in your current day is in the day-to-day operations is a lot about what automation, of course, is all about. But more importantly, it's what we hear most commonly when we're talking to customers and prospects across the world. So just know that you're not alone, but it is good to see that optimizing tech stack ROI is something that's on people's minds. And again, expanding in additional markets, we hear this a lot, and that's a big undertaking. And so there's some ways that we can definitely approach all of these items today. So from a speaker perspective, I'm James Phillips. I'm the director of partnerships over here at Sense. And I've been with Sense for about 2 years. I came from the TA industry. I used to recruit as a third-party recruiter for Amazon back when they just sold books, so that kind of dates me. And I grew throughout the staffing industry, and then ultimately moved into corporate world. And now I'm leading partnerships over here at Sense. And my day-to-day interactions, I work a lot with Sophia. So Sophia, you want to say hi?
Yes. Thanks, James. Hi, I'm Sophia Montana. I'm the Director of Strategic Alliances here at TempWorks. I've been with TempWorks for going on 2.5 years now, and I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. I was an account manager prior to my role in partnerships, so I get to work with all of our integration partners and help select new ones. And then before that, I worked for a handful of startup software companies and in sales. I get to introduce our lovely Tanya Stroop. I'm super excited that you're here with us today, Tanya. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. My name is Tanya Stroop. I'm the controller at EMI Staffing. in Grenada, Mississippi. And I'm just super excited about today.
Awesome.
We are
Thank
too.
you. Yeah, absolutely. So with that, just a little bit of an overview on Sense, and we'll also talk about TempWorks a bit. So we were founded a little over 6 years ago with a mission to build the first end-to-end talent engagement platform. And since then, we've grown to serve over 900 customers across the globe, across all industries. And more than our own results, we've seen our customers hit amazing milestones of hiring great talent in minutes by creating memorable and personalized experiences. We're backed by Titan investors, including Google and SoftBank. But most importantly is that we've really honed in and focused on three key pillars within the industry. And that's the growth of your organization, retention of your talent, but most importantly, how we automate that. And so, of course, that's what we're here today to talk about. Sophia, do you want to talk a little bit about TempWorks?
Happy to. A little bit about TempWorks. We're a cutting edge staffing software provider that service hundreds of staffing agencies of all sizes across the nation. We offer a full suite solution covering funding, payroll processing, onboarding, employee engagement through our mobile app Buzz, and then also invoicing and back office capabilities. Really, we're just really proud to be supporting client growth throughout the staffing industry for more than 25 years. And a lot of our teams internally do come from staffing. So we like to say our product is always staffing in mind, to make it relatable for you. I can hit a little bit about kind of the evolving integration and relationship with TempWorks and Sense. We've been partners for over 4 years now, and through that time, we've really worked together to understand each other's solutions and have listened to client feedback to develop a deeply rooted integration, whether it be field writebacks, chatbot, etc. I'm just really excited about this partnership and continuing to grow the integration together.
So Sophie and I have been working really hard on really listening to what you as our mutual customers are talking about and what challenges you're trying to solve. And between the two organizations, we really try to purpose build a solution that ultimately solves your current business challenges today. And we've now grown the integration. It started in its infancy with just basically automation and messaging. And we've spent a lot of time, especially on the text messaging portion of this. And now there's a full functionality wrapped around text messaging, WhatsApp, and that's on a one-to-one, one-to-many. And so just this one item here alone has been a pretty fantastic problem solver for quite a few organizations. A couple of examples of that here. And today, happy to report that we're almost at 100 mutual customers together. And I would say that the significant growth of that has been really in the last 24 months, but 12 to be more specific about it. And so some great logos on here, just to get a little prominence, EMI right up there at the top. And so we'll definitely talk more about that. So I want to kind of set the table and talk about the landscape of recruiting today. And so before we dive in, let's take a look at a couple of trends. And what we've found is that 84% of employees are looking for open to a new position within the next 6 months. And that's awesome. That's the good news, but it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, there is a massive influx of talent that's loading into the market. And there may be some folks that have been impacted by layoffs. On the other hand, this also means that folks from your own organization may be looking to leave, meaning that efforts and retention are that much more critical. And yet with this massive influx of new candidates, 64% or 60% aren't happy with the experience that they have today in their apply process, through their talent process, whether that be the application all the way through to really that day one, that offer. They complain about lengthy applications. They feel like they're in the dark. And we found that 75% of candidates report that they never actually report hearing back from the hiring manager or from the company. And that 40% experienced a lack of communication during the transaction period or the transition period, leaving them to feel underprepared for their start date. And so really what we're here to talk about and what we're really all about is that candidates expect more, and they expect a really clean mobile experience. That's where we're seeing a majority of our workforce moving to. They expect to hear back in a timely manner. Think about your experience in the consumer world when you go to make a transaction on whether it be an Amazon platform or anything really, is that you want that immediate feedback that, hey, not only have you completed your task, but I'm validating that information back to you. It's consistent and it's timely communication. So people consume communication in different ways, whether that be text, whether that be chat, whether that be email. We want to make sure that throughout any way that you consume the information, that you have that readily available at your fingertips so that you're touching all of your audiences. And then last but not least, they want to be heard. They want to get feedback. They want to provide feedback to the organization. And so if they can do that, ultimately, you can also take that valuable information and provide a better experience in a happier, more joyful workforce. So with that in mind, automation really is the solution. And it's a bold claim. But really, why is automation the solution? And really what it breaks down to is that as you have candidates coming into your top of funnel, being able to automate it and capture the candidates as they are applying. If you can automate this process, you can basically be recruiting 24/7 by 365, and you're always improving your pipeline as you work along. As far as engagement through the talent lifecycle, with real-time communication on the medium that talent prefers that I just touched on, and your recruiters are already working hard today. So if they're anywhere that they can find a possible competitive advantage to beat out the competition, whether it be through speed to market, keeping that communication open, providing that joyful experience, these are all things that an automation layer can help you in your process. And then last but not least, re-engagement at scale. And really, that means not only do you place your gold and silver medalists now in the immediate, but also you're continuing to cultivate those talent pools for your future candidates and your future gold medalists too. So ultimately, that means more bottom line back to the organization, but also, again, a fantastic candidate experience. So I've talked enough about, kind of the automation for the moment. I do want to talk more about Tanya, because that's what we're really here to learn. So don't take my word for it. Tanya, do you want to talk a little bit more about, EMI?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. One of my favorite subjects. EMI has been in business for 25 years. This is our 25th year. We've been operating since 1998. We're very proud to call Mississippi our home. And our specialty is that we don't offer a cookie cutter experience. We customize our client and our candidate experience with us. And that's one thing that we love to do. We are woman owned and operated. And like I said, the thing that we pride ourselves the most on and we love to do the most is to make our clients and our candidates experience very unique to them. I've been with EMI for 11 years in April. I started out as a data entry clerk and kind of moved all the way up. I've been the controller here for the last 5 years. And the controller is kind of lots of hats. So of course, accounting and workers' comp and unemployment, but I also do all of our special projects and we take on new software. I was very involved in the TempWorks transition when we went from our old software to TempWorks, and took on the Sense transition as well. So this is kind of my niche, it's my area, so I'm really excited about today.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And in a word, it sounds like you're busy.
Yes.
Oh, just a little bit. It's good though. I don't like to not be so.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, from a perspective of the organization, this is probably not an uncommon story, but ultimately, if you're looking for efficiencies, that's kind of the key business challenges that kind of was the proposal here.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about, what the processes looked like before you had, TempWorks and Sense in place?
Sure. Uh, well, to put it mildly, it was a constant battle with making sure that follow-up was done. And that was just, it was hard on the recruiters because they were constantly worried about forgetting to follow up or forgetting to do this or forgetting to do that. And it was hard on the managers because they not only had their stuff to do and their people to follow up on, but then they also had to make sure that their recruiters were also doing their follow up. So it took a very, very arduous manual process and it put it into a very easy automated process that has been honestly one of the biggest game changers for EMI. Over the years, I don't know that we, outside of our transition to TempWorks, because of where we were before to all of the forward thinking that TempWorks had, outside of that transition, Sense has probably been our biggest game changer in making things more efficient.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad to hear that. You touched on the candidate experience, and I think like of all the things that we talk about whether it be solving with technology or just solving with best practices, what's your slogan again?
Handling the human side of business.
So handling the human side of business, what I really take from that is that, humbly, we are but tools within your tool set, but ultimately it sounds like it's allowing you to really focus more on what's most important, which of course is the people at hand, right? Like we're actually putting people to work today. And
Definitely.
So handling that human side, I think that's, if you took nothing else away from the conversation today, it's exactly that, is that now I can take the 101 tasks, put those on autopilot and really focus in on the people themselves.
Yeah, one of our biggest selling points with our clients, and one of the feedback that we've gotten most from our clients, is how we make sure that if there's coaching that's needed, we make sure we're very active in that. If there's hand-holding that's needed with our candidates, we make sure we're very active in that. And Sense has definitely taken the things that would normally bog down a recruiter on the day-to-day and allowed them to be more open and have more time for exactly that.
That's awesome. That's powerful. So I think we've kind of already touched on some of these key pains, and we're kind of moving more into, why is automation important to you? And again, I think we'll probably reiterate some time, but to really put some finer points on it, do you want to talk about just when we talk about saving recruiter time a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So we could easily place anywhere from, 50 to 100 people a week during our peak times. And then, in the slower times, 10 to 20, per recruiter a week. The biggest thing for us was when you put that in perspective, and a recruiter only has 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and they have to fit in their orientations, they have to fit in sourcing candidates, they have to fit in following up with candidates, and if they don't show up to orientation, they have to follow up with them there, following up with the client, making sure everyone showed up. All of these things take so much time. When you have the automation of an automatic text being sent to people the day before they're supposed to start, and say, hey, don't forget to do this, this, and this before you go. don't forget to wear this, don't forget to be there at this time, go to this parking lot. All of those things that, number one, any human can forget something. So if it's automated, it's already in there. You're not having to remember, did I tell them this or did I tell them that? And you're not having to reach out to 10 to 20 people or upwards of 50 to 100 people in a week, depending on, the season. It frees up so much time. For one, the most important thing for us to be able to source more candidates and reach out to more people. It also allows more time for the recruiters to reach out to our clients and say, hey, are you getting what you need? Are you getting the type of candidates that you want? And if there's a problem, solve that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. The kind of the third bullet point here, because ultimately I think in most organizations today, it really does come down to also you can't manage what you can't measure, and data really tells a story, and being able to have that at your fingertips, I don't think anybody would argue if I had more information than I have today, then that's valuable. But is there anything in particular from a metrics or a KPI perspective that is kind of been enhanced or brought to the forefront now that you have this solution in place?
The biggest thing I can think of is turnover. I mean, having Sense has been a huge factor in reducing our turnover. And, we can try all day to follow up with people, but if there's that extra step of that automated text that goes out and says, hey, how's it going? And they really feel like they're being heard. I think you mentioned it earlier, that they want to be heard. And if we're going that extra mile and letting them know, hey, we want to hear from you. We want to know how we're doing. We want to know how it's going on site. I think you have a happier employee that way. And obviously, when you can reduce turnover, there's a huge return on investment.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. You're not retraining, you're not onboarding, all those expenses drip away. And you hit the nail on the head again here, and I think it's an overarching theme is just being heard, being able to provide feedback, just understanding that somebody cares and you're not a number or a commodity of any sort. Like, these are the things that really drive value back to the workforce and make you an employer of choice.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head by saying you're not just a number, because a lot of times some of the feedback that I hear from people with a staffing company is, I feel like just a number. I'm just being thrown in there. And that's never what we want. We want our candidates to feel heard. We want them to feel understood. So, and this has helped tremendously with that.
That's great to hear. Very happy to hear that. So just digging in a little bit more, on the actual use cases that you're applying today, when we talk about automation, I think everybody has a concept of it, but sometimes it's, okay, great. You're using automation, but like, what does that actually mean? Where are you actually applying that? And so, checking in on, and here's the very first one, right? Like we're humanizing it right here, is checking in with workers on assignment on day one, week one, and 1 month cadences. I'm not asking you to reveal any sort of secret sauce here, but Tanya, indulging the group on what that means when you're actually applying that in the real business world.
Yeah, so ours is set up, and I don't mind sharing. It's set up to, not only do they get the check-ins, but they also get that day before that their assignment starts, and says, hey, don't forget to show up at this time, go to this parking lot, make sure you wear this, this, or this. And the feedback that we get from that is, it's valuable to us, because if they come back and say, they rate us a 7 or below, then it flags me and it says, hey, you've got this rating, and I'm able to send that to our team and say, hey, we need to reach out to this person and find out what's going on. And again, that goes back to turnover.
Yep.
Because going that extra mile and reaching out to that person saying, hey, we saw your rating, what's going on? What can we help you with? It's just that added touch that makes all the difference in the world. And honestly, that was the first step in our journey with Sense. Is that's the first one that we set up was, we want to make sure we're engaging with people from the beginning, even before the beginning. We want to make sure that we're staying engaged with them constantly throughout the process.
So now it's, hey, I'm excited for you to join. I'm getting you prepared to join. And
Yep.
then, hey, is everything going okay? And almost proactively, I can reach out and say, it's not quite going, like, where do we need to course correct? And so again, I get where that really impacts, reducing turnover, especially in the early times. And
Yeah.
I think anybody who's been in this industry long enough knows that first really 30, 60, 90 days, like that is your highest risk of a new hire and somebody coming on board, is that time, because it doesn't take much to make you feel uncomfortable about what's going on, or where your trajectory is.
Yeah, and I think most every staffing company is going to tell you that most of your people are lost within the first 30 days, maybe even the first 2 weeks. And so that extra added attention within that time frame is huge.
That's great. That's really good stuff. The other one, it feels so obvious. And maybe as I get older, because every year that goes by, I celebrate my birthday less and less. But it's the happy birthday message. It feels obvious, but it's like one of those really nice touches that I think of all the things. Sophia is constantly asking, like, what's the most common journey? What's the most ROI within a journey? And it's this one. It's happy birthday.
Yeah, because the really cool thing about it is everyone wants to feel special.
Yes,
exactly.
So when you have not worked for a company for, say, a year, and all of a sudden this company reaches out to you and says, hey, somebody told me it's your birthday today, wanted to wish you a happy birthday. They're like, oh, wow, what a cool touch. And a lot of times it will spark them to reach back out to us and be like, hey, do you have any job openings? And so that's another potential candidate that
awesome.
It helps re-engage as well.
So I think that one touches on the redeployment, because that across, any industry now is, somebody fell off assignment, and then 2 weeks later, like, oh man, if I just had this person, it would be perfect. And so that redeployment concept is one that we probably hear, probably top 5. I don't know if it's number 1. Happy birthday is number 1, but
yeah.
Do you want to talk about redeployment and what that's meant to EMI?
Honestly, so our business is a lot of foot traffic and a lot of word of mouth. We're kind of in a little bit more of a rural area. So everybody kind of knows everybody. So it's a big word of mouth. So anytime that we can use Sense, a lot of times we'll just, whether it's automation or whether it's through the texting side, we'll go in there and pull people who haven't worked in 90 days to 6 months or whatever, and just send out mass text and say, hey, are you looking for a job? Things like that. And being able to do that with Sense has been honestly one of the biggest. Well, I'll say this: going through the pandemic, and I think every staffing company suffered trying to find people that wanted to go to work, because everyone was so unsure and scared. So going through that and working through that, and then having the opportunity to use Sense and what they offer and what you guys bring to the table, has been a huge game changer in being able to fill the orders that for a long time, it was like clawing our way up just to get people
Right.
to come to work or to even want to work. And you know, understandably so, it was you know, the times were so uncertain at that point. And so it definitely has been one of the big game changers when it comes to redeployment, as far as getting people back engaged that haven't been engaged for a while. It's been a big thing for us, and made our recruiters' lives a lot easier. So
Happy recruiters. That's
yeah.
absolutely a key. So, I mean, again, I know we've kind of touched on these topics, you know, the consistent engagement and communication, and really, you know, I made a joke earlier before we joined this webinar. What does a controller do? But I know in my mind that the third bullet here, overriding the manual auditing processes, has got to be within your world. And I don't think anybody's immune from
That's got to be one hat, Tanya.
it.
Oh, that's one of the big hats. Yes.
So go ahead, talk about that.
Oh,
I mean,
I'll jump on that really quick. One of our biggest issues that we have found over the years is that it does not matter how many millions of times that you tell a candidate to bring their ID, their social, or whatever it is that they have to bring into orientation. It does not matter how many times you tell them, they're going to forget it. And they're going to come and they're going to show up and they're going to be like, oh, I forgot it. If you look at that person and you say, well, you're going to have to come back later and we can't do your orientation, you've just potentially lost out on a lot of money. And so what we have found with Sense is that we have been able to follow up on those things, and those little things that would have been missing where we used to, we would have had to send them to go get it and come back, and a lot of times they won't come back. We have found that we can tell them, okay, that's fine, we'll go ahead and do your orientation. Just as soon as you get back home, here's the phone number to send it to. Get a snapshot of it and send it over to us. We can put it in your file and we'll have everything that we need. Simple things like that, or banking information that maybe they didn't have, maybe they didn't have their routing number or something similar like that. All of those missing documents have just, it's become so much easier to audit that and fix those issues. Which of course makes a controller very happy.
That's absolutely key. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're doing a business and the people are incredibly important to that business. In order to effectively get paid, though, of course, you have to have a happy client. And, you know, ultimately things like this, where you had 10 people show up on day one, 9 of them, you know, had their stuff, the 10th wasn't there. In their mind, that's still not 10. That was 9 out of 10. And so, you know, do you feel like you've actually been able to, you feel like you have an improved relationship with your clients because you have that confidence now and they've developed that confidence?
150%. Because the likelihood of you having 10 people show up and only one of them have something missing is about a 10% chance.
That was generous.
Most of the time, you're going to have about 50% of who shows up missing something. And so, you know, not only does that cause your recruiter to have to scramble and work harder, but then your client loses confidence in us that we can provide what we say we can provide.
And that's
we've got a few questions in the chat that might be good to cover while we're in the flow.
For sure. So
Asked a great question, Tanya. Are you using text templates for ID reminders / direct deposit reminders, or are they automatic journeys based on triggered fields in TempWorks?
We are not using text templates for that. Most of the time, what we use for that is just, it's not an automated process right now. It is more of a manual process. Now, when I say manual, it's literally a click of a button and say, type whatever, don't forget to send me your ID, or don't forget to send me your social, or whatever. It's with that little simp icon on the side, you don't have to type in numbers. You just pull the person up, pull that icon up, and grab the number from the screen and send that text. It's super easy. But we're not using text templates right now. Maybe something we look into for sure, but we're not using it right now. So.
Sophia, do you want to ask the other? So I'll just call this one out. How are you capturing opt-ins for text messaging? And Tanya, if you're, I'll tell you what, I'll just take that one.
Okay.
Ultimately, when you apply to a role, of course, you're providing your mobile phone number at that point, which means inherently that we can text you. However, we're very sensitive to the fact that folks may not want to have that text communication. And so there is a built-in feature that basically allows you to immediately stop text messages. The very first text message comes out, there's actually a reply stop. And Tanya, I don't know if you've, maybe I put you on the spot as far as data goes, but I mean, do you have any sense or pulse on like how often that's happened where somebody says, hey, don't text me?
I don't. I can get that for you though. I can gather that and get it to you after the webinar.
Well, I think that's actually that's a better stat, is that it's not on your radar, which
No,
means
it's not. Honestly, what we find is we can call someone 20 times and they'll never pick up. Text them one time and within 1 second we have an answer back. So that's been our experience.
and I think that's common, especially now, is from what I hear from even internal partners within our mutual organizations, is you can call me, you can send me an email, you can send me a Slack. You won't hear, but the minute you text, you'll see the little bubbles pop up. There's immediate reply.
Oh, yeah.
It's just we've gotten to that point in the world where that's what you expect from a communication perspective. The other question was, are there any database maintenance steps that can be triggered by Sense and actually performed in TW automatically? And the short answer is yes. There are concepts of like chatbot enrichments where you could launch out campaigns and with the capability get updated information. And so that's actually something that we've been working on the roadmap for the better part of 6 months. And so there are ways to continuously update and maintain your database. And we can, write that back with notes into the system of record. And from there, you can update all your information. Do y'all do, Tanya, I'm curious, is that something that you're doing today, is asking people for updated information, a year from now or 2 years from now?
Actually, we are working on a journey now. It's one of our I'm working on 2 journeys, and I think one of them is going to answer one of the other questions we have. But one of the journeys that we're working on is it's going to go out towards the end of the year, and it's designed to capture anyone who's worked within that year and get updated phone number, address, and offer the option to opt in for electronic W-2. So, and in order to capture everything, because what we find is at the end of the year, all of these W-2s go out and we get probably half of them back. So what we're looking to do is at the end of the year, get the most updated information that we can and get that updated in TempWorks as well. We're not very far in the process with that journey, but we are working on it. So
50%, that's still pretty awesome. So anything in improvement of that would be amazing. Absolutely. Very good. Well, I'm going to pause here for a quick poll, and we'll go ahead and pop that up on the screen. But, curious to know from the group's perspective, what's the most common obstacle you face when evaluating a new solution? Because ultimately what we've talked about is all the great things that we've done here today, but you still have to acquire that solution. It doesn't magically just show up, although, we're getting closer to that every day. And so curious just from the group's perspective, what's the key component that you really look at when making a technology or solution decision? Leave it open for another 10 seconds or so. That one's really straight across the board.
Oh, wow.
Another one.
I love. And so, what you can kind of see there, though, is obviously, I don't think there's not a surprise here that cost is obviously a consideration, and upfront investment and investing in technology is not just a financial cost, but it's also a time cost. It's a resourcing cost. And so there's a lot of requirement there that has to be considered. And I'm sure a controller would personally verify that, yes, that's going to be probably question number at least 2, if not 1, when we say, hey, we have a great idea and a solution. But, once you get past that and you understand that there is a potential for an ROI here where you diminish that upfront cost or you see a benefit over time, then really, not at all surprising to hear that ease of implementation and adoption of a solution are number 2 and, neck and neck. And so, can you talk a little bit, just actually, we'll jump into that. Investing in the new technology, can you talk a little bit about your experience with implementation between, just getting things stood up, getting an understanding of how the platforms work together, and then ultimately we'll talk about adoption too.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I can sum it up in 3 words.
Oh, I love
It was
that.
easy. I mean, literally, it was so easy. We had your team, between TempWorks and Sense, everything worked super seamless. We were, we were setting up journeys right away, and account managers were helping us through every step of that. I have probably driven them crazy. But we were able to, within the first week or so, have our on assignment journey set up, our happy birthday journey set up. I think the biggest hurdle was me understanding what fields were what when it came to how it's labeled in Sense versus how it's labeled in TempWorks. And that was easy to navigate through with the help of my account manager. So, they have always been extremely quick to jump on a Zoom call, share their screen, and help me navigate through every step of the way. We just are finishing up a new journey to catch communication with new applicants, and it's probably been the more challenging one to set up because not because of anything from Sense perspective, but from my perspective, just figuring out how I wanted it to look. And our account manager literally held our hand all the way through it. We've had multiple Zoom calls to get it exactly like we want it. And what could have been incredibly frustrating for me to try to do on my own, they have literally handheld me all the way through it. And that's the way it's been anytime we've set anything up. It's not one of those situations where you're going to get started with someone and they're going to say, okay, this is how you set a journey up. Boom, you're on your own. That's not the way Sense works. It's been a process where I've not had one time when I've, had a question about something that instead of going back and forth on emails, they're like, let's jump on a real quick 30-minute call or 15-minute call or whatever, so I can help you through that.
We love
That's
that. That's what we encourage.
So I'm going to jump back to the getting started a little bit more, because I think, touching on the implementation is key. But one other item here, right, is that it doesn't matter if this is the best solution that checks every box in the world. Change management and adoption is what really drives the success of any tool that you purchase. And so, integration can be tricky, which we kind of talked about standing things up, but the integration is looking great. Talk to us about like how you helped ensure your team was ramped with Sense to like really realize the value that you saw. And you touched on it before, but like I think just the team itself that works there that has to do this day in, day out.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for them obviously was the automation. That was the biggest selling point for them, and realizing that no longer did they have to remember to do first aid calls or the day before calls before they go out to assignment to make sure everyone's going to show up. All of realizing that all of that was coming off their plate, and that because most recruiters, if they're in the right seat of the bus, so to speak, then what they love to do is work with the people and get people jobs. That's the most rewarding thing for them. So the more that they can have the administrative stuff taken off of their plate and be freed up to reach out to these people and say, hey, I have a job opening for you, and offer these people jobs that could it's such a rewarding process for them, and that's what they love to do. So to take the administrative work off of them was the selling point. That was the buy-in for them, realizing that no longer did they have to, at 4 o'clock every day, stop what they were doing, and reach out to 20 or 30 people to make sure that they were going to show up for an assignment the next day. That little bit of extra, you think, well, what is an hour? Well, it's a lot in a recruiter's world. A lot of phone calls can be made in an hour. A lot of recruiting can be done in an hour. And if we take off that administrative burden, then it opens up the possibilities for them and lets them do what they love to do. So that was our buy-in. That was what helped everybody jump on board with that.
So it sounds like the once the solution was kind of proven that like, no, it's actually doing these things, the buy-in was fairly immediate.
Oh, for sure. And two, the ease of being able to mass text. So, the ease of being able to just open that little Sense icon and grab all the numbers from the screen was something we hadn't had before. So it was very simple and very easy.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. So I would love to believe that, Tanya, when you were making these selections and investments in your solutions, that, Sense was the only one that was in your mind. But, ultimately you had listed out some key items here as to, why, you selected the Sense and TempWorks solution together. And I think, seamless integration is the one that's probably the scariest one, because ultimately you can see demos, you can see proof of concepts, you can even test these items out. But ultimately, at the end of the day, until you're in the real world, that's where, things, if they're going to go wrong, they're going to go wrong in the real world. Can you talk a little bit about your experience of what it's been like to have that integrations, set up, and, if there was an issue, what it looked like to get it resolved?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of already hit on it, but I'll say it again. It was easy. we were immediately connected with account manager, and we set up a couple of Zoom calls to train on the texting side of things. We didn't pull our whole team in. We pulled in key members of our team and then let them go train others. And had a few Zoom calls on how to set up a journey, and the great thing about it was that the biggest frustration was on my end, and making sure that I understood where all the fields were pulling from, and realizing that if I ask the question, it's going to be answered just like that. You know, I'm one of those types of people. I like to try to figure out things for myself. I don't like to bother people, but realizing that, and our account manager has always made it very clear that it doesn't matter if it's just a quick question. She's really fast to jump on a call with me and walk me through the whole process. And, you know, I can't count the times I've had to jump on there with her, and I've been like, I feel so dumb because I should have been able to figure this out myself. But just the willingness of them to jump in there and help us. I really cannot think of any issues that we had. You know, like I said, the hardest part was figuring out where we wanted to start and what verbiage we wanted to use. And the great part about it was we didn't have to come up with all of that on our own. Since already had ideas for us in there. And then we could just customize it, just a little tweak here and a little tweak there to make it more personal for us. So
that's exactly what, you know, and it's great to hear you say that, because ultimately I think we talk about that all the time, and especially when you think about mass communication, whether it be text or email, whatever, is that it's really easy to get into a kind of a flow of, hey, I'm going to mass blast this out and see what comes back. And just those little tweaks, those little personalizations, those little investments in just that little extra step differentiates you from competition, but also differentiates you in the candidate's head. Like, they're going to come back. They're like, you know what, those guys, they were pretty nice. Like, you know,
yeah, they care. They listen to me, and that, you know, you, like I said, you said it earlier, they want to be heard. So
that's right. So again, you don't have to divulge any of the secret sauce, but we dropped a little slide in here because we'd love to know, you know, you touched on one of the automation journeys that you're going to be working on, but you want to talk a little bit more about some things that you've got going on right now?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, we have the end of the year one that we're working on. We're not very far in that process. The one that we're almost ready to deploy now is our it's a new applicant journey. And it basically, when someone puts in an application, it's designed to maintain contact with that person. And if they're not responding, then we're just constantly, ever so many days or whatever, reaching out to them and saying, hey, are you still interested? Haven't heard from you. What's a good time? Those kinds of things. And we, like I said, we're right at the end of that and getting that together, and really excited to deploy that. So I'll let you know how it goes.
I love it. The future. And there was a question earlier in, how are you able to capture brand new web applicants at the point they submit their application? And so I would probably talk about this for about 30 minutes, but I'm going to try and do it in 30 seconds. And the answer is, and I think you're doing this now, Tanya, but it's that you've got multiple options of how to do that through the automation. If you hit a stage in the workflow, then this is the information that I capture. If you never move this stage, then I'll go, you know, tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we haven't heard back from you, like you just mentioned. Ultimately, there is functionality within the chat bot that, you know, you can drop on a career site landing page. You can launch, you know, automated journeys from that. That would also allow for you to further capture information. But the answer is that there's not one answer. And I think that's the value prop, is whatever works best for your organization, the way you operate is how you can tangibly, you know, grab this information and make sure that you're engaging with those candidates. The other question I think I saw is, when are write backs for TW going to be ready on the note write backs? And so I don't want to steal the thunder. Sophia, you want to share that day?
So chatbot release is this Friday. As far as overall write backs, this is right now in review with TempWorks development. And so we are figuring out when this will be fit into our roadmap. So we don't have an official answer for you quite yet, but we are working and reviewing what needs to be done for that.
But I think the headline there, though, is 210 chatbot note write backs back in the system.
Yes.
I'm a planner and a prepper, and I like to be organized, but I coincidentally could not have scheduled a webinar 2 days before that's happening. So that's awesome. That's really exciting. So kind of just to put a bow on this, and we've got about 5 minutes left. We didn't want to leave some remaining time for Q&A, but hopefully what you got a sense of today, no pun intended, is that throughout each stage of the talent life cycle, there is a solution that we've been working on. And I will tell you, 4 years of partnership, 4 years of heavy development, this doesn't get born overnight, but ultimately, we want to listen to the business cases, the use cases, and the feedback from organizations like yourself, Tanya, right? Where you're doing this every single day, and we can build every cool feature that we think we need, but ultimately, if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work and it's not valuable. And so, I'd say that with the engage and the meetings and the messaging, chatbot discover, this is all great. We're here and now. We understand that, there's going to be an evolution in the talent landscape, and we're going to have to constantly be innovating along the way. But, I think just through this last hour, we've touched on virtually every piece of this flywheel. And it sounds like, you've had a great experience from the implementation, the adoption, and most importantly, with the candidates and the clients alike. So, do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to impart on the group before we jump over to Q&A?
I guess probably my biggest words of wisdom would be, when you decide, not if you decide, when you decide to go with don't hesitate to just get on a brainstorming call with your account manager, because that was the best part. Is I was able to jump on a call and be like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. What does that look like? Do you have any other clients that are doing something similar that you can, either connect me with that person to talk to them about how it's working for them, or help me navigate through the way that might look for us. And that was an invaluable tool for me as the person putting it, in play. I needed to be able to, kind of bounce those things off of the account manager. And that was a huge, huge asset. And referrals, like customer referrals, like hearing from, if you're on the fence and you're just not sure, ask Sense and TempWorks. Say, hey, give me 2 or 3 people that are using this and can tell me more about it. That was exactly how we made our decision to make the move. So
I appreciate that, and absolutely fully encourage it. I mean, that's 100 mutual customers. That didn't happen by mistake. And ultimately, that's exactly right. As we understand that the community is tight knit, you're going to be able to ask somebody that and so really glad to hear that was a tool that you leveraged, and obviously it worked out for the positive benefit for the collective 3 of us here.
Absolutely.
Great.
So last question, we talked about this in the concept of how, we can implement this. As Tanya kind of mentioned too, the brainstorming session. So what really I'm asking here is, if you want to have a brainstorming session, we'd love to take advantage of the opportunity to do that. Sit down, talk things out. figure out, what the solution is, what the business challenge you're focused on, versus, what the solution can provide for you. And that's the approach that TempWorks and Sons tries to take with everything, is solving your challenges versus just pulling out another cool feature. So, we won't show the results there with this one, and I can go ahead and hop over into Q&A. We do have just a little bit of time left. We're right at time, but if there's any last minute questions, more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, we will make sure that we do answer any questions that we didn't get to in a follow-up. All right. I don't see any. So we're going to end right on time, which is a rarity for me, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate the time. It was great to speak with you, Tanya. I appreciate you taking in the time out of your day. I think a lot of people got value and benefit from this today. And thank you as well, Sophia.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.